Well, we are back. This at noon we talked about laws and where to find laws and all those things. I mean, it's not wasn't very long. It was basically going over where to find things. As y'all know, this is nationwide. We have people from all over the country, so I don't want to get bogged down to into any one state. This afternoon we have the homeschool question and answers. Give me a minute. Um, I'm recording this and I have a child or someone turning up the TV really loud. Have them turn it down. It's too loud. And I don't know what they're watching. It sounds like a war show, is what it sounds like. But anyway, so we talked about where to find laws this morning. You can go back in the units and find it. If you had questions from this morning, if you've watched it, you can put it in the comments. I can answer it. Um, so anyway, there are things you need to think about when you're deciding to homeschool. Now, remember, if you're doing public school at home, this might not apply. Well, you can still think about it. There's still things to think about, but especially with this session, legally, if you're doing public school at home or you're doing COVID schooling and doing distance learning through your local um, zoned school board, you're not going to have to deal with legal issues. If you're doing traditional, you're going to need to do paperwork. This morning, it will have that there. So some things to think about. One thing that parents don't always think about is you have to have someone covering your minor children during the day. You know, many of us work, and that is just one of those things you have to think about. So this is one of the things you need to think about. Who is covering your children? Sometimes you're lucky enough that mom can work from home or mom is just at home, and that's awesome. That's how I started out. I was decided to not work when my children were little, but that's not always an option for everybody. So you need to make sure someone is covering your children. Check your state for latchkey laws. Now, latchkey laws is usually has to do with, like, your kids come home from school and they are at home until you get home from work. That does not always cover if you're homeschooling. So you need to have someone responsible for your children. You need to check curfew laws. In my city, we children cannot roam during the day. So I have high schoolers now, but when I was little at home, so if I were running to the grocery store, then my children have to know, don't leave the property, don't go roaming. So these are things that you need to think about that you don't normally have to think about when your child is in a traditional brick and mortar school. Does that mean you can't homeschool? No. It just means you need to have a plan in place for what you're doing. So let's see if I think I've got some notes here. So yeah, this is the session we're doing. So what are some of the things you need to be aware of and you need to think about? So those are two things, is making sure you're covered, your children are covered, because even if they're teenagers, they're still minors. And so you've got to know that they're covered during the day. So another thing to look at, do you have access to a public school, virtual school? Pretty much every district will have that now. So we're not going to go into that. That's something that I would go into in other times. Alabama just started having virtual schools. That's a new thing for us. So, I mean, in a homeschool 101 situation, I would go over that. We don't really need it too much. Another thing to look at when you look at law is, do you have access to public school programs? Some states is yes, some states are no. That's another thing to look at. In Alabama, we can play high school sports, and there are ways to do that. In Florida, they can do high school sports, and they can do like band and stuff like that. So every state will be different. That is something you can go to Homeschool Legal Defense, and they should have some information there. Let's see, what else can we cover? If you have questions, let me know in the comments. I can do either session today. Let's see. So those are two things. Another thing you need to be consider, if you are divorced, you need to look at who decides your children's education. Sometimes it's the mother, sometimes it has to be joint. Those are just things you need to take into consideration when you start the process. And it's note. I have not, I've dealt with pretty much all of them. Not me personally, but with other mothers. What are some other things to consider? And we're just talking laws. I mean, there's lots of things to consider, but those are some of the main points that I've got. I don't have many. Let's see. Another thing, if you are just homeschooling for COVID, or if you always need to have some kind of exit plan and some kind of just to know what's going to happen if you decide to put them back in private or public school. Legally, they cannot not take your child. Well, private school they can decide, but public school, if your child is in that age group of compulsory age, they have to take your child. What they will do is test them back in. Pretty much I've seen that everywhere. And what it is don't take that personal. What they're doing is just seeing where they are in the curriculum, where they know where to put them. They're not, I mean, way back in the day when I was young, I would have taken that as a, oh, they're against us type thing. But that's not necessarily true. When I change curriculum with my children, I give them a test, even though they've always homeschooled and they've never gone to public school. Every time I change curriculum, especially math and certain subjects, I look at the curriculum and I give them a placement test. So that's all it is. They're just making sure that they have covered the correct information so that they're in the right place. It's not easy. When you put them back in their high school, there's going to be a credit issue. That's the same thing that happens with colleges. If I move from one college to the next, they may not take all my credits. It's not necessarily they're out to get us thing. I would have thought that when I was young. Now, because I've worked with parents so much, it's just a credit thing. Some schools don't have the same thing. One time I had a credit in college that they didn't want to take, but then they ended up slipping it and naming it something else. So it's just one of those things that you've got to know going in, especially if you plan to put them back into school. So that's just one of those things. Now, if you've got questions, I can answer them. If not, we can do questions this evening. I can actually walk you through finding laws. See, it's like having a mirror when you have the camera on. So anyway, we have a lot of people just drop back on. I don't want to just jump off, because these are all short segments. They're short segments. I'm just making them a little easy. So when you find them in the Lifetime Access, you're able to just watch what you need to watch. So anyway, you know what? While y'all are there, we got so many jump on. I'm going to if you got comments, let me know, because I don't see them unless I look. I can see them. They kind of start dinging me. Let's see. So anyway, always have an exit plan. I hope you don't have an exit plan. I hope you always homeschool. I mean, that's my thing. I hope you try it and you love it and you want to stay, but it's always good to have. I mean, things happen. Like, if my husband died and I had to go back to work, that might be something that happens. There are just things that happen. If you keep them strong in their math and their English, they're going to be fine when they take a placement test. Those are the two. When my kids were little, those were the two I always hit strongest, is to make sure they were strong in math and English. Everything else you can kind of make up. I even think of it even differently now. My son took the ACT last year, and when I look back at it, I think of science differently now. I mean, I'm like, as long as they can read graphs, they can pass the ACT. I want them to have fun in science, but curriculum's another day. Anyway, so no questions. Everybody's just listening. That's just a weird feeling when nobody asks questions. Y'all get chatty. So this morning we went over where to find your basic information. Homeschool Legal Defense is my favorite place to go. They're a national organization. I am not compensated for naming them at all. I pay membership fees every year. Nobody gives me anything for free, but they have always been very, very honest, even when they don't understand or don't. Like, I called them about something. I deal locally. I'm busy. Close the door. My kids, they're gonna get in the video. So anyway, I need to interview them is what I need to do. I need to interview them. Um, so it's like I called one time for Homeschool Legal Defense to ask a question about a parent who had a runaway. And I learned all sorts of that. And they told me, and said, we don't quite understand what to answer. And then they called me back 3 weeks later because they researched it. So they're really awesome. Okay, I got a question. For curriculum, yes, almost all placement tests, every curriculum will have, well, not every curriculum. Science and history will not have a placement test. They will have, it'll just be, mainly it's math and it's language arts that will have placement tests. History and science very rarely have it. Most of them are not, most of them are free with the curriculum. If you want just like more like a standardized test, they're going to cost. They're not usually free. Where I would look, there's one called Let's Go Learn. And if you Google Dora Math assessment test, it's like an assessment. Okay, there's a difference between placement and assessment. Assessment, they're just assessing what level you're on. A placement is just kind of like you're figuring out where they are in the curriculum. And placement test is pretty much what the public school will do. It's not like a standardized test. It's just a test to find out where they are in the curriculum so they know what grade to put them in. And that's usually what happens. And yeah, sometimes, usually, let's see, I'm reading your stuff here. Let's see. I'm asking. You can find many free for curriculums, but a placement or a standardized test is not usually free. Let's Go Learn they have English and math, and it's about $25, but you have to go down a rabbit hole to find it. And because they want you to buy their services. And so it's like, but the basic, just the test is like $25 for each part. That's the one I usually send people to because it goes all the way up to 12th grade and you can do it at home. SAT, ACT, you have to go somewhere and someone else has to administer the test. I think Iowa you can do, but I don't know what the price is. But again, they're assessments and you can find them, but they're not usually free. I've not ever really seen a free assessment test. Placement test, on the other hand, is specific to the curriculum, like SACS and math. You would take a test and it shows you where they fit inside that curriculum. And it's not really a good indication on how they're doing. Does that make sense? Makes sense? I'm going to get rid of this banner. But let's see. Banners. There. Okay, but so that would, that's assessments. Some states require assessments, some do not. That's another thing you have to look at, but that's looking at your laws. So, I live in Alabama, use that as an example. State testing is not required. SATs, ACTs are not required. Are they bad? No, it's just, you have to find where to take them. We can find ones different places. I'm not sure about other states. I don't want to dig into, I don't think Mississippi requires anything, but I don't want to go into laws and dig because then I may tell you something wrong. You can go look on Homeschool Legal Defense. In fact, I could pull that back up. Give me just a minute. You know what happens when I do this? Y'all can still see me, but I don't see you. That's what happens when I go add. So then I'll show you and see where we can, let's see if we can show you that again. Let's see. There. Okay, there it is. Let's see if that pulled up. Yeah, good. Okay. So you can go like, let's see, testing and evaluation. When you go on their website, I just love their website because you can find the legal stuff. You could find and use most of this stuff for free. They have awesome. I mean, you can actually like rent assessments and stuff from them. They have really, really great support. So they have intro. They tell you about the assessments, and if you go to states, to the legal homeschooling in my state. You find your state. The ones that are blue have like no regulation, and so you can go look, and like here's my Alabama. It just says, you know, we are low. We have some regulations, but not much. Assessment requirements, that's testing. So there it is. No, we don't have that. Immunizations, no, except in option 2. So you have to go look. There are 3 options. You have to go look and see what it is. So they have every state, and you don't have to be a member to do this. That's one thing you'll hear some of the old timers like, oh, you have to be a member to get anything. No, you don't. You can get basic information for free, and that's why I like it. And I like the fact that they do a lot of stuff. That's just me. Everybody has their opinion, but that's one place you can find, whether you just what you have. They'll have things. I mean, when you become a member, they have even more. It's like it's kind of worth it. If your children are under the age of compulsory age, which is around you, some states it's 6, some it's 7, some it's 5. You can get it for free. It's your oldest child. They'll give it to you for free, and you can try them out. Okay, so we covered most of the things to think about. And, they may not apply in your situation, and you can take my opinion and throw out what you don't like. That's okay. I'm just telling you what I've seen and what I've looked at. I mean, overall, I have not seen anything really horrible ever with, curfew laws. It's just things to keep in mind. A lot of times we tend to think our teenagers are adults, and I'm just not a fan of leaving them at home when parents work, because they are still babies. And I read an article not long ago where they talked about high schoolers and teenagers needing their mother more than toddlers. And I think in a lot of ways, I think they're needed. I mean, we'll stay home until our kids are big. That was my plan. I was going to stay home until they went to school. But I found that my teenagers find me all day long. And they need their mamas too. So at least if you have to work, I mean, I know that, completely get that, but try to find somebody to be someone they can touch base with if they need help, or if they're in trouble, or I mean, you can make it work no matter what's going on in life. If you're working and you have to work, or you're working, I know people who have worked shift work. You can make homeschooling work in any situation. You just have to be determined, and you have to have a plan. And that's one of the things I want to give y'all this week, is some type of plan. We'll go over lots of stuff. I just enjoy being with y'all. Okay, I'm just glad to be here. But so there's lots. I mean, you can make it work if you have a support system. I've seen people make it work when they didn't have a support system. You can do it. You just have to be determined and be willing to ask for help when you need ideas. We have such an awesome community now. Social media has just made homeschooling so much easier than when I started. And there's no reason you can't make it work. I promise. I mean, I have not seen many situations where you can't. But anyway, so this was our afternoon session. Today's the easy day, because laws are just really, really hard to talk to specifically. So I've given you some places to look. I've given you some stuff to think about. We have the question and answer this afternoon. You can go into the units and schedule something. I think the only time that I actually have people scheduled is at 4:00. So look at that one first, because it's already scheduled. And then if it says it's full, because we can have up to 50 people at a time. If they says it's full, then move to one of the other times. Then we can kind of consolidate it. The rest of the week is going to be much, much busier, a lot more information. I mean, this is just kind of one of the boring beginning subjects. Tomorrow we have deschooling, and what do we have tomorrow? Deschooling and socialization, and curriculum's on Wednesday. See, I forgot my schedule. Tomorrow we're going to have, let's look real quick before we get there. Let's see. Tomorrow is deschooling and socialization and extracurricular. Those are some big subjects. And then on Wednesday, it is all day long curriculum. We'll have curriculum. Both sessions, there'll be something about curriculum. And it'll be a lot of fun. Lots more information. I'm already loading stuff into the Lifetime Access. I've been putting these in there, and I'm going to try to have at least one extra workshop on every day. There will be some days where there'll be 2 or 3 that we've already got over in Professional Home Educator. I had a really great time today with y'all, and we're going to have a great week. I mean, like, we're going to have a really, really great week. I have been so excited about this. And anyway, so since there's no more questions, I will see y'all this afternoon at 4 in Zoom if you want to join us. If not, I will see you tomorrow morning. Have a great day.